course, I don't even have the Twitch chat open at this point because I am like majorly caught up in show notes for a change. Welcome to Generation Orange After Dark? Question mark. Guys, we do appreciate you tuning in. Obviously. Sorry, I'm now getting to actually check chat. Mark, how are you?
Well, I'm good, man. What's going on? Just here trying to enjoy some dinner before we got started. So luckily, I was able to finish it up. But other than that, I'm good, man. Ready to go. How about yourself?
I am. I mean, I know you saw in host chat, man. I've been researching this week. Busy. We got a full show lined up for you guys tonight for sure. Even have a couple of things that if we happen to be able to get to them, we'll get to them. But guys, first of all, again, thanks for joining. We do appreciate it, especially those of you that are in chat already. Those of you that maybe join a little bit later, we appreciate it as well. Of course, as always, guys, remember you can follow us on Twitter at Gen Orange Radio. Follow myself on Twitter at Sean Ringrose. Follow Mark, the ever popular, ever wonderful pollster at Segovia on Twitter as well. And then, of course, if you haven't followed our Twitch channel yet, make sure you follow our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Generation Orange. Guys, we appreciate you joining, like I said, as always. And then if you haven't yet, make sure you bookmark our anchor.fm site, I guess, page. Anchor.fm/Gen Orange, GEN Orange. That's where we post our weekly audio only version of the episode too, so that you guys can, if you miss an episode, we get it. You can't always be here live for the 1 to 2 hour show. And so we want to try to make that available for those who want to listen in later to be able to stay up to date and caught up on everything. So hit us up, anchor.fm/Gen Orange, and you guys can subscribe to get updates from there. Using your favorite podcast service as well via iTunes or Apple Podcasts, I guess technically via iTunes, Google Podcasts via YouTube Music, because that's what it is now, and then Stitcher, we're on there, I'm pretty sure, I think, as well, and a host of other, there's too many to list, but a host of other podcast platforms that distribute the podcast for us. So definitely really appreciate the opportunity to put that out there. We've wanted to do that for a while, and we started it up a few weeks ago. Hey, that's awesome. Won the Open Cup today in Football Manager 2021-22 season. Good vibes for this season. I mean, look, I don't want to start with that. I really we could dive right into it right now, but we'll hold that. We'll come back to that. We will come back to that. But first, before we dive into Dynamo talk, just like last week, I want to make sure we start with the Houston Dash. It was recently International Women's Day. I don't remember what the exact phrasing for that is. But, we don't just celebrate the ladies just one day of the year. We like to celebrate the ladies throughout the year. So we want to make sure we give the shine to the Dash. And again, they deserve it, having won Challenge Cup last year and having come out in the air quote regular season kind of semi-tournament, I guess you would call it, and showing out really well there. Dash, the Challenge Cup defense for the Houston Dash, for those that don't know or haven't seen it yet, that Challenge Cup defense begins against Chicago Red Stars, the team that they beat for the Challenge Cup in the Challenge Cup final last year. That defense begins at BBVA Stadium here in Houston on April 9th. If you haven't had a chance yet to prepare to pick up your tickets, purchase your tickets for that, make sure you do that. Those go on sale pretty soon, probably sometime later this week or next week. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled on the at Houston Dash for the official Houston Dash Houston Dash Twitter, so that you can make sure when they do go on sale. I'm sure they'll post a link up for everybody to grab those. You don't want to miss it. Again, it's a chance to celebrate the ladies, all the work that they put in, and at that point, at least 30% of the stadium should be full. With that being said, Mark, I wanted to real quick do a little prediction for the Dash part of things here. So, super easy question. What is your prediction for where the Dash finish in their Challenge Cup defense?
Back to back, man. Why not? It's one of those things where I think there's a lot of momentum going into the season this season for the Dash. Obviously with all the achievements that they had for last season. Um, and I think you got a lot of motivated players coming up as well. With um, U.S. national team players like Mewis and Campbell, and then you got the Canadian players like Schmidt and Prince and them, and then obviously Ms. Daly over there repping England. They're obviously all trying to show good form because they want to keep getting selected for the national teams. But I think that it's going to be a great Challenge Cup for them because obviously at the end of the day, I expect them to hoist that trophy and defend their title. So that's my prediction.
I want to argue, but I think for this one we are definitely aligned for sure. Look, I mean the Houston Dash are built to win. You've got Shea Groom, you've got Christy Mewis, you've got Rachel Daly, you've got Katie Naughton, you've got Megan Oyster at the back, you've got Jane Campbell in goal, you've got Veronica Latsko who showed out really well in the tournament. You've got Brie Vasali, who on that wing is just a terror against defenders. You've got Alicia Chapman. You've got Nichelle Prince, who comes off the bench and plays really well. You've got Sophie Schmidt in the center of the field, locking down that midfield. You've got Haley Hansen. Just player after player after player. This team is deep. This team is strong, and they got better. They picked up a couple more players. They didn't have a lot to do on draft night, but that was okay. They didn't need to do a whole lot, and they really didn't lose anything important to their title defense. And again, you've got a team that's already had a full season to gel together, and they showed last year what they were capable of. So I think all bets are off. This team absolutely can do it again. And if they do, look, it puts the league on notice going into the regular season. And there's no doubt in my mind that this team can at least compete up into playoffs, if not all the way through the playoffs.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, and plus, the most important thing about all on top of everything that you and me said is the fact that these girls love playing with each other, and they have great chemistry on the pitch, and I think that they're gonna do great things. I honestly see it obviously bearing any kind of injuries, but I don't see why not. Why can't these gals go out there and defend their title and then go into the regular season on a high note and make their first ever playoffs, in their club history,
Yep, absolutely. All right, so moving on from the dash, we did our due diligence. Let's talk about I don't know, Dynamo. It sounds like a good topic. We kind of shorted it a little last week, so let's dive into it this week. The Dynamo begin their season, and also it happens to be the home opener, and it also happens to be MLS's season opener match on Friday, April 16th at 7 p.m. at BBVA Stadium here in Houston against San Jose. Again, the Dynamo have already said they're going to have about 30% capacity available. I don't know about you, but based on some of the hype that I've seen from some of the people out there, I don't think 30% is necessarily a uncomfortable number for them to reach in the home opener. It is San Jose, so maybe not the biggest name for the home opener, but it's still the home opener in a very important season. What are your thoughts?
What do you mean, man? Chris Wondolowski, the all-time goal scorer in MLS history. That doesn't bring the crowd out. Nah, man. But beforehand, shout out to you. Nice jersey. I see you on there rocking the orange, the new orange. Hopefully I'll get mine here pretty soon. I'm still rocking the old school. Trying to pay homage to the old crest. R.I.P. Old crest. But no, man. I mean, obviously this is great, man. I'm happy. Obviously myself, you, and a number of other people here on the chat, and I'm we got to experience last year the season opener. When LA Galaxy came in, and it was a great environment, great atmosphere. Everything was awesome about that day. Who would have thought that was going to be the only match we would go see that year, right? And obviously fast forwarding to March. What would you say? March 16th, right? Is the opener?
April 16th, my friend. April 16th.
April 16th.
March 16th is next week. Next week Thursday. No, it's actually before that.
Sorry about that. Yeah, April 16th, it's gonna be I pretty even though it might be at 30% capacity, I think it'll still be a great showing for the Dynamo, just because I think a lot of people here are so enamored to go see them live, to go see live soccer, just to go see live events in general. And who knows, maybe by April 16th, that 30% might be up to 50%. Who knows, depending on obviously the situation going on in hand, how many people vaccinated and all that good stuff, whatever. But I'm excited about it, man. I'm excited for MLS season to start. I'm excited for the Dynamo to start. I'm excited about these new additions. I'm excited about Tab finally having a year under his belt and seeing what he can do as a coach, in the sophomore season. So there's a lot of good things going around. The good thing about a beginning of a new season is everybody starts 0-0. So there's no crap about, hey, last season this happened, last season was a big disappointment. Yeah, it was. That's in the past. New season, everybody starts fresh. Let's see what we can do from here on out.
And interesting you bring that up, because that's exactly what Tab's been saying to the boys. Like, literally exactly that. This is a new season. Let's start over. Let's forget about last season. Last season was pandemic, it was COVID, it was Corona. It was everything else that happened. It was a shortened season. It was, MLS's back tournament. It was quarantines, not getting to spend time with your families, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All that is behind us. Let's move forward. Let's move on. Let's start fresh this year. Obviously there have been a ton of changes. We kind of hinted and talked about it a little bit last week. There's been a ton of changes to the Dynamo roster year over year, which is in this case probably a very good thing. I will go out on a limb and say it is definitely a very good thing. But you also mentioned the point that this is so early in the mix in terms of timing. April 16th, that's still over a month away. And yet we already have betting lines from, what was it, BetMGM up on MLSsoccer.com as an article talking about what the 2021 MLS Cup odds are for every club as preseason begins to get underway. What I thought was interesting coming out of that, Mark, is the club they have in first in terms of their best odds to win MLS Cup in 2021. I'm a bit curious how they put LAFC at number one ahead of Seattle and ahead of Columbus, who were both in MLS Cup in 2021 or 2020. And LAFC has not even made it to MLS Cup at this point, and yet you have them winning MLS Cup as the best odds. Now, again, this is odds to win MLS Cup, which could change dramatically throughout the season. It will change dramatically throughout the season, but it's a great starting point in comparison to power rankings, which are usually based purely off of popularity. There is some, to at least a small extent, some looking at the lines, figuring out what teams have the easier schedule, what teams don't. Those sorts of things go into these predictions, or not predictions, but these odd makers, figuring out who goes where. But I find it interesting that they have LAFC first. Look, I like the team. I think they've got a decent team, but first place, winning MLS Cup at plus 500, to me, that is still a very long shot. And we've seen it in other leagues where the team that is favored going into the preseason never wins the cup, never wins the trophy, never wins the championship. So, Mark, what is your thought of LAFC in the top spot at plus 500?
No. You and me were talking about this offline before we started the show, and I was telling you, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit of a degenerate. So I do follow a lot of betting lines. I do bet soccer sometimes, and I do bet other sports, obviously, in that standpoint. And the interesting thing about MLS, when you're betting MLS, is that it's not as pinpoint. Vegas is not on top of their game as far as odds and things of that nature when it comes to MLS, which is great for somebody who maybe follows it and can take advantage of those odds and score lines and things of that nature. But obviously LAFC is a sexy name. It's a popular name. It's a popular club. And obviously with the success that they had the last two seasons, obviously no silverware aside from the Community Shield that they won their first year. I mean, but like I said, it's one of those things where I have no doubt in my mind that they'll have a great regular season. But until you can show me that you can succeed in the postseason where it matters most, and finally lift up that MLS Cup, then you're just another one. You're just another one, a part of the bunch. For me, honestly, if I was the wise guys over there in Vegas, and I had to choose a team, honestly, I wouldn't go too much further away from the defending champions in Columbus Crew.
Exactly.
I love what they've done. I love what they've done with the team. I love their additions that they added to their club. Not They didn't lose anybody big in particular, and they made their bench and their whole team stronger. So I would not be surprised if Columbus goes for a back-to-back title. Especially with all the hype around the club, with their new stadium opening up, obviously the celebration of them winning MLS Cup last season. So, I mean, in my opinion, I would have Columbus number one, and not just because they're the defending champs. The reason, I mean, Seattle would be a great pick too, but now you're minus one of your top three players in Jordan Morris. You haven't replaced him yet. Obviously we don't know what else they have cooking up as far as players coming in through their academy, but obviously they have their number 10 and their number 9 who are elite in MLS standards. So as long as you have those two guys, you'll always be a contending team. But the loss of Morris is going to be a big blow to Seattle. Obviously other clubs that you can talk about, Portland Timbers, is another club that maybe might have a chance out there. But obviously Portland is one of those clubs that I feel are more closer to the bunch than they are legit MLS Cup contender. But regardless of whatever happens, AFC, I believe, is just obviously it's just a sexy name. So it's a known name. Obviously, they have the biggest player in the league in Carlos Vela, the most notable, most recognized player in the league, maybe next to Chicharito. But that's the only reason for that. So I would not be placing my bet on LAFC if I was
not. Yeah, I would not either. Not at plus 500. The payout is so slim at plus 500, and then you have to tack on the fact that again, your probability of it actually being LAFC is pretty slim. So yeah, Seattle second, Columbus third. That's plus 800, plus 900 respectively. I'm gonna jump a few places to 8. The team that's in kind of the 8th place in the betting lines here. Orlando City SC at plus 1800. Orlando comes before teams like Atlanta, Portland, who you just mentioned that you think could be a kind of a one of those teams to look out for to make a run into MLS at the MLS Cup. New York Red Bulls, Inter Miami, LA Galaxy, New England Revolution, Minnesota United, who had such a fantastic season last year, FC Dallas. Exactly. And you've got Orlando up in the top 8, and all of those teams that I just said are all after Orlando. Which I think is a travesty, and tells me that somebody whoever's coming up with these lines has some bit of information that they think makes sense for why Orlando has moved that far up the list. But I guess we'll see when it comes to that. Go ahead.
No, I mean, if I was the one creating a list and I had Orlando ahead of all those guys, obviously I would think highly of the addition of Pato as their 9, obviously, so you're kind of predicting that he's going to have a great season alongside Nani, who's still playing at a high level here in MLS, along with other players. I mean, Orlando, let's not forget, they did have a good MLS is back tournament. They kind of faded a little bit during the season, but it's a team that's under Oscar Pajeras, who we know obviously a lot from FC Dallas. He knows how wants the team to play, and he gets his team motivated to play. We can't take that away from him. So I mean, the one that I am interested in, obviously as far as odds go, you mentioned Atlanta United being underneath Orlando. Obviously we know that they have a big player coming back this season that's going to be healthy, hopefully, or might take a little bit of time for him to get back to full health. But obviously Atlanta United has become Argentina United. So we'll see what happens with those guys.
Yeah, Atlanta is an intriguing one there, and they're at plus 2,000, which is not a bad bet whatsoever. I mean, you're definitely looking to make your money back there. Portland again tied with Atlanta at 9th at plus 2,000, which I think is again it's a pretty solid bet either of those teams. But we're gonna go down a little further down the list. So I was curious because I wanted to see how the Texas teams kind of compare. So FC Dallas of the Texas teams, FC Dallas is kind of the top of those three teams, tied for 16th overall at plus 3,300. They're tied with Chicago Fire, and they're directly beneath New England, LA Galaxy, Minnesota, and the other teams that we just talked about as well. I I don't struggle with that at all because I do think that Dallas has a possibility to be, continue to be that good. They've got enough youth and depth to be able to do it. But on the flip side, they also lost 3 players overseas this offseason, and they really haven't backfilled a whole lot yet, which would give me enough pause for concern to say, I don't know if 16th is fair. Maybe slot them a little lower. So that's Dallas before, and again, I'm going to give you all 3 of the Texas teams. So that's Dallas at 16th. You've got Austin.
Sean, before you continue.
Yeah, I'll wait.
Before you continue with the Texas trio, where is Sporting Kansas City? Somebody in the chat has
yeah, I saw it. So Sporting Kansas City is in 7th at plus 1,600. They fall under. 4th is New York City NYCFC at plus 1,000. 5th is tied between Philly Union and Toronto FC at plus 1,200, and then you got SKC at 7th at plus 1,600.
So and SKC. I mean, before you get back to the Texas trio, SKC obviously we're very familiar with those guys. One of our main rivals in this league, and obviously they had a great acquisition in Alan Polito, who. I'm gonna give him his props. I didn't think he was gonna be much of a signing for them last season. I'm not a real big fan of his game, but hey, he proved me wrong. He came up and he did what he needs to do as a number 9, score goals, provided assists. Was a big acquisition for Sporting Kansas City, and we'll see. Maybe another year under his belt in MLS. Maybe he'll step his game up another notch and lead that pack. So at plus, what you say, plus 1,600.
1,600 for SKC, yeah.
That's not a bad bad line for SKC.
Let me ask this: do you take SKC at plus 1,600 over Portland or Atlanta at plus 2,000?
I mean, like I said, once you start getting, because I mean, obviously, I think there are the differences between like what you said, 7th and 12 was like maybe 400 points between those.
Yeah, 7th and Portland is 9th. I mean, you're talking it's a small gap of it's plus 400.
So I mean, it's basically, and this I'm just just tip for people out there if there's any other degenerates out there, which I'm pretty sure there are.
I don't know what you're talking about, Mark.
And you get to that close of a margin, this basically is the bunch that I was mentioning earlier in the segment. You have to just really do your due diligence and just review the team and basically just go see which team you think is best.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think if you're giving me SKC in Portland, I'm tempted to take Portland over SKC.
I think I'm in the same boat, and it's a little bit to do with the difference in the line. That extra 400 that makes a difference. But it's also the fact that I think Portland honestly has the better of those two teams. That's not to say SKC is bad by any stretch. I just think Portland's better. I think I think their team makeup is good enough, especially getting Sebastian Blanco back, and it looks like Sebastian Blanco will be ready basically within the first month of the season. That's a team that's going to be a tough out for anybody. And at plus 2,000, I mean, why not? If you're going to drop some money, you do it on a team that you think has a chance. And anybody who's betting that line at least has a chance at at a pretty decent payout. But again, let's get back to the Texas teams real quick. Not that I want to go too far away, but so that was FC Dallas coming in tied for 21st with RSL, San Jose. Vancouver is Austin FC at 6,600. The Hipsters hitting it 6,600 plus 6,600, and then tied for 25th, which is of course last in the league. Is FC Cincy, DC, and of course Houston Dynamo FC at plus 10,000. Let me ask you this question: Who are you taking with that bet? If you're going to drop money, are you taking FC Dallas at plus 3,300? Are you taking Austin FC at plus 6,600? Or are you taking Houston Dynamo FC at plus 10,000? And this is, let's say you're putting down $100 on it. Making an interesting level of wager here.
Making interesting. You should have said 500. Then I would have been like, oh, nah, I'm researching.
Damn, how much money you put down, Mark? I'm just kidding.
No, don't get me wrong. You know, $100 is a nice little chunk of change too. Don't get me wrong, but 500. Now you start thinking. Now you're looking for every kind of little advantages that you can. You know, And before I answer that question, I might have to get a couple people together and like everybody pitch in $10, and we might have to punch a ticket for that plus 10,000 on the Dynamo. You never know. No, man. I mean. Who was it? FC Cincy, Dynamo, and who else?
FC Cincy, DC United, and the Dynamo.
And DC United has fallen, man.
Can you argue with it? Can you argue with them being there though? Right now, I can't. They deserve to be there.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just the players they've lost, man. I mean, it's just kind of amazing how they.
And let's add to that, they just lost Lucian Acosta today. They traded him away for allocation money, $550,000 in allocation money. Or for his rights, but still, I mean, that's another player that's a player they really used.
And who got him was FC Cincy.
Yep. Yep.
So I mean, look. Obviously, I'm gonna be a homer, and I'm probably gonna take the Dynamo out of those three teams. But I wouldn't be too far away from taking Cincy if that was the case. If I was neutral and and not any kind of way of a fan of a club, Cincy wouldn't be that far away from me punching a ticket for them. If I had to pay between those teams. But yeah, it would most definitely be Dynamo, Cincy, then DC United. But like I said, we're going and right now, but we're kind of going based off history, right?
Sure. Because that's all you can go on right now.
You can't really go off anything else, especially with a club like Cincy that's only been around for 2 years now.
Yep.
They're obviously they're acquiring players. If I think they've invested a little bit into their talent on their pitch, things of that sort. Now, DC United's a different example because we do have history on them, but obviously with the players that they've lost, throughout the last couple of seasons, their quality has gone way down. But that's the thing about betting soccer, man. Sometimes history of a club, can steer you the wrong way, and sometimes you got to worry about the now and not worry about the past. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with the Dynamo and Cincy, then DC United on those.
And between those three, I can definitely see that. So, enough about the betting lines for MLS Cup 2021 winners. Again, I've got my questions around those, but they are put together by by individuals that look and try to determine what the line should be. That's kind of the first betting line of the season. That's going to shift tremendously, especially as the preseason kicks off and more movement happens coming into the league or going out of the league. I think we'll see a lot of those lines change. It'll be interesting to follow them throughout the season. Mark, maybe you can find a time to work through that and see what you can track throughout the season. It'd be kind of cool in a spreadsheet or something. I don't know, just an idea.
I'm looking for that.
Yeah, because wouldn't that be cool at the end of the season to just kind of see how it all plays out and what the best bet would have been? Okay, so go ahead.
Before what I'm gonna do. I mean, and I'll try to keep consistent with this. What we'll do is we'll have like a little, obviously how we do our predictions before the games and things of that nature. So what we'll do is I'll make sure to have the betting lines for that game.
There you go.
And I'll do my research on it. And all this stuff like if I'm betting myself, and I might punch a ticket for a couple games, along the way. If anybody's interested, and then which way I'm going and why, I'll let you guys know why and
stay tuned for Mark's newest podcast titled Betting Lines and Why You Should Be Careful to Spend All Your Money on Betting Lines for sports, especially soccer.
Look, guys, Look, guys, I'm gonna give you a little bit of free advice when it comes to gambling, man.
Never gamble what you don't have to gamble with.
Never gamble what you're not able to lose. One, number two, if you have a roll to start off the season with, never bet more than 10% of your entire roll. Okay, regardless of how much you think it's a short thing that you're gonna. Oh, this is a short thing. I can increase my bankroll, whatever. Do not ever go over 10% of your roll. So just two advice that I live by that don't bet what you can't afford to lose, and don't go over 10% on one bet of your bankroll.
All right, so moving on from the preseason betting lines for MLS Cup 2021, an article came out actually. I think it was just earlier today by British MLS. I've actually never followed these guys before, but I think I'm going to have to from now on. BritishMLS.wordpress.com. The title of the article is "Houston, do we still have a problem?" And frankly, this is a great article. It came out kind of as a rebuttal to the MLS Cup betting odds for 2021 that we just talked about. I kind of like the opener. I think this does a disservice to the Dynamo, who have quietly gone under the radar. Sorry, there was an article posted today on MLS.com which revealed Houston Dynamo were the least favored team among bookmakers to win MLS Cup. I think this does a disservice to the Dynamo, who have quietly gone under the radar over the last few months, carefully crafting the foundations of what could be the early stages of a surprising storyline. Look, I'm not proclaiming the imminent return of the former MLS Cup champions to the league's elite. I'm merely saying the Texans may have stopped falling into the traps that have hindered them in recent years. A recruitment drive of proven MLS talent, largely focused on central areas of the pitch, is a refreshing change which could finally give the Dynamo a sense of strong foundations, something they have been sorely lacking in recent seasons. With that being said, they jump immediately into talking about Joe Corona and why that was such a good, shrewd piece of business. The 30-year-old can offer the stability and calmness in midfield that any successful side needs. He's a man who knows the ins and outs of the league and could be the perfect partner for fellow new recruit Derek Jones. He then goes on to talk about Derek Jones and how Derek Jones's best football was played under Tab Ramos when he was with the U.S. youth national team sides. And he talks about Derek Jones a little bit. So before we go any further with that, talking about those central midfielders, he talks about an interesting potential partnership that could develop between Corona and Jones. We talked a little bit about this last week, but I want to get your opinion. Who are your starting, especially as the season wears on? Do you think that, I'm not even going to ask who, do you think as the season wears on, we could ultimately see a partnership of, say, a Joe Corona and a Derek Jones, as opposed to a partnership of Vera and Seren, or Vera? Yeah, well, it'd have to be Vera and Seren at this point. Do you think that Jones and Derek Jones and Joe Corona have enough to beat out Seren and Vera for those two spots?
Before I answer that, I love how the article states that the Dynamo has focused a lot on the central of the club, which means obviously like the backbone of the club, the spine of the club, which I kind of argued back and forth a little bit, especially past season, that we needed a lot of help, especially centrally, because one of the bad things about the club was transitioning from offense to defense when they lose the ball. But to answer your question, no, it's interesting because obviously I think us as a fan base, we hold Vera and Seren very highly, because of obviously what they did as players in a bad season. Seren obviously has the respect of the coach. I think Seren he stepped his game up last season, and showed why he deserves to be a starter. Vera obviously being the team MVP and things of that nature, and working his butt off, doing what he can, and basically, being able to captain the team a couple of times and things of that nature. But obviously, you bring in players to compete, right? And Corona and Derek Jones were brought in for that exact reason. And if those two are not pushing the other two, then there was no reason to bring them. So, do I believe that at the end of the day, if the season starts with Seren and Vera, will we see the season end with Seren and Vera? I don't think it will. I mean, because I think that the two players that you mentioned in Jones and Corona are players that are on par as far as talent with those other two, but are also players that can push the previous two that we stated. Um, so I do think that we'll end the season with somebody who's overtaking somebody else's spot. I'm not too sure who, but if I had to guess, probably be Corona over Seren. Um, Eric Jones brings a different dimension to being a DM as opposed to Vera. Obviously, with his height being a little bit bigger, being a lot more physical, a lot more stout, as opposed to obviously Vera being a little bit shorter in stature and a little bit more skinny. But he still does a great job for us. So it just, man, it's hard. But yeah, if I had to choose between those two, I think it would be Corona over Seren before I choose Jones over Vera.
Fair enough, fair enough. And I could see that, obviously, because of the way that those players play, their play styles, it definitely fits that for sure. So I want to continue reading that article once I pull it back up because I accidentally closed my browser, of course, because that had to happen right then and there. Stupid thing.
It's all good.
So, Mark, go ahead and continue talking about Seren Corona.
Why you do that? Another thing that's interesting about the article that I got to skim through a little bit before, we got on the show was, the fact that, I like the fact that, obviously they're focusing on MLS from across the pond first and foremost. That's always a good thing. But, it's a lot of interesting things with all these acquisitions that we made. It's going to be, I think we can all be in agreement that the club is a lot stronger than what they were the last day of the season last season, right? Or at least I hope they are. With the people that they brought in. So I believe the club overall is better quality, more depth, obviously. Now, whether or not we ain't enough talent and enough players to get us over the hump and get us back into playoff contention is another thing that we'll have to wait and see. But I'm excited for the not only just the midfield, but obviously the defense, to see what the defense does. There's still a lot of questions, even though we did finally get. Well, we hope that we got a true captain and for the defense in Tim Parker, which I think we probably have. But it's going to be interesting to see who he pairs up with. What about Barlow? When do we expect to see him? Get meaningful minutes. Players, the fullbacks, obviously like Benzema, Valentin, Lundqvist, and Junqua. What about those guys? Who's gonna come out of those battles, and who's gonna be starters and who's gonna be bench players?
It's interesting you bring up the defense because the article does go on. Defensively, Houston spent much of the last campaign in a state of flux, unable to deal with the quality of opposition attacks. Conceding close to 2 goals a game makes a fruitful season all but impossible, and so it was proven. He talks about the likes of Minor Figueroa and Victor Cabrera struggling in the league, which possesses more attacking flair than ever before. And then they go on to talk about the acquisition of Tim Parker and how they needed to do a double take when Tim Parker had been signed, because while he wasn't at his best necessarily last year, when he's on his day or when he's at the top of his game, he is a top-class center back. I completely agree with that. And then also talks about how startling it was how the Dynamo were able to trade down in the draft and still secure Generation Adidas defender center back Ethan Bartlow so far down the draft order, and how Bartlow is composed on the ball and forceful in the air and couldn't wish for a better person to learn from than Tim Parker himself. And then he goes on to actually talk about how having a fully fit Jose Bisama will be a big important piece to this team. I wouldn't argue that at all. And goes on to talk about a few other things. If you haven't read the article yet, first of all, shame on you. But you can check it out. Go check out their Twitter. It's at British MLS. Follow them, and then you'll see the tweet with a link in there. We retweeted it earlier, but just in case you could check it out that way. One of the things he brings up, we talked about it last week. He talks about there's still the rumors out there about Carlos Salcedo being potentially linked with the Dynamo having interest, not having made a formal offer, but that could come at some point. What that would do in terms of pushing Ethan Bartlow to the bench, et cetera, but how that would definitely be a hell of a defensive partnership between a player like Carlos Salcedo and a player like Tim Parker. that is a tandem, a center back partnership that would make people stand up and take notice and would be one hell of a break from the past. Frankly, that would feel like going back to the days of Eddie Robinson and Bobby Boswell, Ryan Cochran, David Horst, going back that far if you want, coming back a little bit earlier or a little more recent. But just those days of having those center backs that don't take crap from anybody. I don't really feel we've had that, especially here recently. So I do want to call this out. He does bring up Mateo Bahamic and how he's a player that could potentially see an opportunity. He talks about Tyler Pasher, who's the player we signed from USL from Indy 11. Tyler Pasher's coming off the back of a brilliant run of form in USL, and with the win in his sails could bring a few surprises. And then he brings up Maximiliano Urruti and how, even though his playing style can be frustrating to watch, if you look at the actual statistics, though, the former Dallas and Montreal man is a useful person to have on the roster and will provide another important option in an attack. With all that being said, he does say we have to keep things in perspective. Houston are coming from a very low base. Are they better than last season? Or they are better than last season, but are they going to compete with Columbus, Seattle, and LAFC? Almost certainly not. But he does say things are moving in the right direction, and a tough era has been left behind, et cetera, et cetera. But I like the ending of the article. Excuse me. From the ashes of a strange, fraught, and erratic campaign, Houston have emerged stronger and more resilient. Who knows quite how far they will rise, but the Dynamo will have the last laugh over the bookmakers. I love that ending, and I gotta applaud whomever this is that actually wrote that. I don't think the author's name is technically on there, just British MLS. That's all you need to know, I guess. But that is a hell of an ending for an article, a very good kind of teaser ending to an article. I just wanted to give him props. Definitely deserved. Follow him on Twitter at British MLS. And then, of course, hit us up if you have discussion points. Is there anything else that you want to talk about related to that article specifically, Mark?
Yeah, it's like I said prior. I do agree that the team is stronger. A lot more depth, a lot more quality. Now, do I think that they're on level with Seattle and all those other guys? No, obviously not. But what I am hoping at is that we're finally able to, compete and maybe make a playoff spot. I don't think that's too far fetched or too beyond the realm of possibility where we shouldn't be competing for a playoff spot this season. And in MLS, once you make the playoffs, anything can happen. So I think it's just the fact that we just need to get over that hump of not making the playoffs, man. Especially the reason why I think I think a lot of people on here are so enamored with making the playoffs because it's not hard to make the playoffs in MLS. Honestly, it seems like everybody's making the playoffs. In MLS, I think it's 16 teams out of 25 make the playoffs, right? So that's more than 50% of your entire league. So it shouldn't be as difficult as it has been for us to make the playoffs. But unfortunately, we've been stuck in this, you're not making the playoff force field kind of type of deal for these last couple of seasons. And it's frustrating as a fan, obviously, and I know that club is doing everything that they can, within their resources to try to get the Dynamo back in the playoffs. And I think the season would be a very good layout as far as the foundation of turning this club into a winning club and changing that culture around and making it a winning culture. If they can succeed and make the playoffs this season, that'll be something to watch out for this season.
Yeah. Oh man. Certainly agree with you. Look, the Dynamo are better. There's no doubt about that. Defensively, they should be better with Tim Parker back there anchoring that back line. And there was an article that came out, I think it was on MLSsoccer.com, but it might have been from Victor Ariza at the Striker Texas. But basically, it was an interview with Tim Parker, and Tim Parker said, hey, I'm coming in expecting to be that leader. I'm expecting to be that vocal guy in the center of the pitch. I'm going to be that guy. That's going to be me. I'm going to be loud. I'm going to be. He basically talked about accountability too. He intends to be accountable not only to himself but to the team, to his teammates. and he intends to keep them accountable as well. And we've talked about before that was one thing the Dynamo were missing, was that leadership component, that leader, true leader on the pitch that, match in, match out, is always going to be that guy. And if that's Tim Parker, and I have every reason to believe it will be, then you fill that role. You put that person in place. You paid the money for him, and look, if he comes true, if he's that player that we expect he can be, then that, and you improve the defense enough, that goes a long way for your 2021 kind of result of the season, if you will. But go ahead, Mark. I could see you itching to say something.
Everybody, when we acquired Tim Parker, everybody was worried about, that the allocation money that we owe New York Red Bulls can be up to $1 million in allocation money. I said, you know what? I hope it's $1 million, because if it's $1 million, that means that Tim Parker, came in here and was a solution to our problem in the backfield. He's our starting center back. He's our leader. He's our defender. He's our anchor. Whatever you want to call him. Like I said, the thing is, I know a lot of people were like, "Oh my God, $1 million." So what? If $1 million is all it took for you to find your defense, your defensive stopper, so be it, man. That's cheap in my opinion. We're out here talking about rumors of 16 million for his partner, hopefully, and Carlos Salcedo. I mean, dude, that's a big pill to swallow. But like I said, I hope that we're paying $1 million in allocation money to New York Red Bulls, because that means Tim Parker came in here, became the enforcer, became that defensive stopgap that we need, that we've been desperately in need of, and and he's doing his thing.
Oh, hey, Mela, thanks for that tip. That's actually a really good tip about Control Shift T. That reopens, I guess, your last closed tab. Really cool. So there's another article that came out on MLS Soccer that I wanted to talk about, and that is MLS's 8 extreme predictions for the 2021 MLS season. There are some interesting predictions on here. These are supposed to be bold predictions, so I can't fault the author in that regard, but let's talk about a few of these. So I'm going to jump to number 2 prediction here, because that was the one that caught my eye the most. This summer, this summer will bring the most DPs in MLS history. I mean, that's not exactly, in my opinion, a very bold, prediction to make, a very extreme prediction. Because if you think about it, MLS just introduced the U22 initiative, which starts this year. And that adds basically another 3 DP slots available for teams to use on top of their existing DP slots that they could use. So you could have teams that could end up with 5-6 DPs. And so, yeah, easily, I think 2021 is going to see the most MLS DPs during the summer window brought in specifically. What are your thoughts, Mark? We're talking about a player in particular. It could be a DP that you just mentioned just a second ago, and we've already talked about, in Carlos Salcedo. Do you think the Dynamo bring in a player like Carlos Salcedo, and then maybe look to bring in another younger player to hit that U22 initiative level as another DP?
As far as the MLS in general overall, yeah, I don't think that's really much of a bold statement. I do expect the summer transfer window to be really busy for MLS, especially for the clubs that start out well and trying to establish themselves as a MLS Cup contender. And you got to think about it as well, man. Like I said, COVID-19 thing is still affecting a lot of clubs around the world financially. And because of that, a lot of clubs need to sell players, and unfortunately for like a lot of clubs in South America and things of that nature, they need to sell their best players to garner as much money as possible. Now whether or not whether or not a lot of MLS clubs are going to jump on that and try to pay premium dollars for players that they're actually getting cheaper than what they would normally be costing in a regular atmosphere. Who knows? We'll see, But there's a lot of players, a lot of big name players, obviously, because MLS is always looking for the next big name to come over, that are going to be free soon. As far as being able to join the club without no transfer fee tied to them and things of that nature. A lot of big name players who are around that 30 to 32, 33 year range that will come in here and dominate in MLS. Sometimes depending on how their attitude towards the league is. So I do believe that the summer will be very, very busy as far as MLS standards go for DPs. Uh, Mentioning the Dynamo, um, you know, whether it's Salcedo or somebody else, I do expect the Dynamo to go and make a splash somewhere, depending on what's needed at that time period. Now, whether Salcedo comes in prior, I highly doubt it. I think they're going to go into the season with what they got, and then see where they're at. When the summer transfer window opens up and things of that nature. Now, now who knows? Maybe when that transfer window opens up, who knows, we might have one of the top defenses in the league, and Salcedo might not be a priority at that time. And maybe now you can focus that money on maybe a top-notch midfielder or a top-notch, forward. But I do expect the Dynamo to go out there and splash some money and maybe not get obviously your big name DP, but get a player of talent, with a lot of talent. And as far as a young DP, that the U22 initiative that they rolled out under the new CBA. Yeah, why not? I mean, the Dynamo have always been one of those teams that want to go get young players and be hopeful to develop them and then sell them off. But this time, if you do develop them, sell them off if you need to.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely agree with you on that. And for those that say, well, you know, the Dynamo are lacking in attacking quality now with the losses of Elise and Manotas. You're not backfilling to cover for that with a Mateo Mohamed and and Arudi and Lassiter and Tyler Pasher and the other players in Fafo Pico. Those players aren't going to equate to what you lost in the attack, and I think that's fair. I don't disagree with that, but there was a point that was brought up on the MLS Soccer. I don't even know which show it was on there. Just check them all out, and eventually you'll find it. But it was a point that somebody brought up, and I was like, man, that's a really good point. You have to remember, if the Dynamo are as limited in spending as we think they are, is it better for them to spend on attack or on defense? To spend that kind of money? If they have that kind of money that they can afford to spend, is it better to spend it on attack or defense? You get more bang for your buck. Defenders are cheaper. High quality defenders are cheaper. If you can't afford to spend that $10 to $15 million, closer to 15 for a high end attacker, your money is better spent bringing in that high end defender and plotting in a whole bunch of different players as attackers and finding the ones that can work together. And so, from that aspect, from that perspective, if the Dynamo can afford a player like Carlos Salcedo, regardless of how good the team's defense may be at that point, if you can improve it, and there's no doubt that a Carlos Salcedo and a Tim Parker together are going to improve the defense. If you can improve it at that point, and you're spending, roughly what you would have spent on the attack, but you're getting a player that is a top level player, for a few seasons. I mean, it's hard to turn away from that idea. It's hard to turn away from that as being a wise investment and a wise decision. So I just wanted to piggyback on what you were saying. Yes, I completely agree with you. Yes, that's true. I guess we'll just have to wait and see how it goes for the season. We're running out of time real quick, and there's two more points out of this article in particular I wanted to call out. The next one, which is I call it my M. Jones is smoking the good shit, number 4 here. Portland wins CCL. Tell me what you think of this. Is Portland primed to win CCL this year?
And going back to the gambling bit we had earlier, the reason why I said Portland at that number is a really good number. Portland does really well in tournaments, man. Obviously they won the MLS's bag tournament last season, and obviously when they get into playoffs, they do pretty well sometimes in the playoffs as well. Them winning an MLS Cup and things of that sort. And like I said, CCL, I can't remember. I can't remember when it's going to be played or when it's going to be started or when it's going to start playing. So I can't really tell you if it's going to be a benefit for them because it's going to be the start of the season, whether maybe they can just focus on that and solely on that to start off the season, and then worry about the season later on after they're done with the campaign in CCL. But let's not forget, man, they have players of quality that have played big games in other countries. They played Copa Libertadores games, they played Copa Sudamericanas, things of that sort, and players like Diego Valeri and Sebastian Blanco and the Chara brothers and things of that nature. So I think, would I be surprised if they win CCL? Yeah, I would be, but would I be surprised if they were the first team to win it? No, I don't think I would be as much. No, because I think Portland is a very stable team from 1 to 25. I think they're very on par. They're not too top heavy, and their bottom tier of players are not that big of a fall off.
So let me ask you this: is Portland a team that if Diego Valeri has an injury early in this season, are they a team that drops tremendously in your rankings, if you will?
Let's keep in mind Diego Valeri isn't the focal point as he was prior, like maybe 2-3 seasons ago, right? So I think if Diego Valeri, obviously still a important piece to their attack and all that stuff. I think them losing Sebastian Blanco last season hurt them more than if Valeri ends up hurt this season. So I don't think it would be. Yeah, obviously the quality of play would fall, but I don't think it'd be such a big hit as it would have been in years past.
I looked it up for you. The round of 16 for CCL begins Tuesday, April 6th. CD Marathon from Honduras versus Portland Timbers, and that is in Honduras. So April 6th. So right, literally the same week of MLS Open play, or the MLS opener. Actually Portland plays in Portland on Tuesday, April 13th, and then they play Saturday, April 17th. So 4 days later.
Yeah. So in my opinion, I wouldn't be surprised if they're really gonna take it seriously in CCL, which I think everybody in MLS should always take it seriously, regardless of what you think your odds are of winning it are. But if I'm the Portland Timbers head coach, all this preseason that I'm doing right now, or all these preseason matches, is to focus on CCL. My Portland Timbers too would be opening up MLS play at this moment.
I agree with you. So enough about that. Enough about CCL. The last thing I wanted to talk about, and we have just a couple of minutes, so I'm going to kind of get this one in quick. But number 5 on the list of predictions here is, and it's an interesting one. Atlanta will score at a rate we have yet to see before over an entire season. It's interesting to me because Sam, in the very same article, in the very same explanation of that prediction, actually in there refutes the prediction and says, maybe I'm not really so sure this is actually going to happen. He talks about how Atlanta has trended down the last 2 seasons in terms of scoring pace, and have proven that and he doesn't talk about this, but I'm adding this, have proven to me that they miss both Tata Martino as their coach and Miguel Almiron as that second striker, that player that can link up with Joseph Martinez. And then he does talk about Joseph Martinez coming off his injury, the ACL injury that's held him out for a little bit over a year. And then he talks about the backup strikers are a 38-year-old Lisandro Lopez, and starting to show his age a little bit, almost Cubo Torres, who is the backup to the backup striker. Look, do you buy into this? Do you think that Atlanta can return to a better than 2 goals per match scoring rate with the team that they've assembled right now?
Look, I am excited for them as far as them bringing in the coaching and Gabriel Henez. I think he's going to return them back to a little bit of what the Tata ATL was prior to the Frank de Boer disaster. Obviously, their scoring numbers fell off because of the system that Frank De Boer was running, and then obviously on top of that, you throw the fact that you lost Joseph Martinez, a 30 plus goal scorer for the season, was out. So obviously that's gonna impact you a lot. Now, I think they're gonna do something crazy like that. No, not necessarily, because I don't think they have the players for that at the moment. But with Atlanta United, you never know who they can bring in. But I don't. Yeah, I think that's a tall cup for them to fill, and I don't think they're gonna do it. Now, I think it's a little bit of an excitement on Sam's part of the fact that that you're gonna have Joseph Martinez come back, and yeah, I'm pretty sure he's gonna come back. And if there's a regular full season, I'm pretty sure he'll be one of the top scorers in the league and all that good stuff. But you also got to remember, man, being out for a year and to be able to get back at that form, especially the top form that he was in prior to the injury, that's going to be a hard task for him. It's going to take him a little bit more than just preseason. It might take him a little bit of more of like a month or so to get him back to 80% of what he was, And nonetheless, 100% of what he was. So, I mean, no, simple answer, no, I don't think they're going to achieve it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mentioned you guys know very strong, know my strong opinion related to losing Tata Martino. What a difficult loss that was for them, knowing full well that they were not going to be the same team, even though everybody had them rated so highly after Tata left and after Miguel Almiron left. There was no doubt. You lose that, that's just too much to lose to overcome. And to me, at this point, they haven't done enough to overcome what they've lost, even still, two to three seasons later. And we're still seeing the effects of that. I think we will still see the effects of that. Look, Joseph coming back is great. It's a great storyline, but that's not a player. I don't care how much effort he's put into it. He is not going to be a player that just comes in and is immediately back on that goal-scoring clip. It's going to take him 2-3 months, if not longer, to get that feel back. MLS, the speed of MLS is different even than it was just 2 to 3 seasons ago when he was scoring at that pace. It'll be interesting to see. And again, as a reminder, this was a knee injury. And what do Atlanta play on? It's not a grass field. They play on turf. Now, technically turf. It's still grassy, but it's not. You know what I'm saying? It's not good for his knees, man. It's just not.
It's not AstroTurf.
With that being said, it's not AstroTurf, thank God, but it doesn't have the same level of cushion that natural grass would have. With that being said, guys, obviously it's 8:30. We only intended to go for about an hour tonight, so we've hit that mark. Thank you for tuning in yet again. We appreciate it. Do us a favor and make sure, if you haven't yet, follow us on anchor.fm. That's anchor.fm/GenOrange. I mentioned it earlier. Also, along those lines, keep an eye out for some stuff coming from Harry for his podcast at RamNICOL on Twitter. Make sure you follow him. You're not going to want to miss it. He's working on some stuff. It'll be very, very cool. And then, of course, guys, thank you for tuning in. We do appreciate it. As always, stay forever. I was going to say forever orange, and I'm like, wait, no, that's not right anymore. Hold it down. Hold it down.